Hey, what's going on, Miami Dolphins fans? It's Ben Morgan. It's the Fins Up Network, and we are just a little over a week away from Miami Dolphins rookies reporting to training camp for the 2022 NFL season. So, what does that mean? That means it's time for more position battle preview video. So, we are going to hit on the wide receiver position. I think I've already hit running back, offensive line. Make sure you go back and check those out if you haven't seen them already. But your homework assignment for the wide receiver video, outside of Tyreek Hill, Jalen Waddle, Cedric Wilson, which Miami Dolphins wide receiver are you most looking forward to paying attention to and to watching this upcoming season for the Miami Dolphins? So, what we have right here is the projected starters, some projected backups, and then those battling for either a backup role or maybe even a roster spot because it's going to be some fringe calls. It's going to be some tough calls at the wide receiver position for the Dolphins this year. So some of those guys are going to be battling for what could potentially be some of the final spots on this team roster. But let's start with the obvious because I think everyone knows Tyreek Hill, Jalen Waddle, Cedric Wilson. They're the team's top three options at the position. I mean, Hill is one of the best wide receivers in the game. Jalen Waddle just set the rookie record for most receptions in the season. And Cedric Wilson, despite sporadic usage in the past, put up some respectable numbers with the Cowboys. And Miami just signed him to a 3-year, damn near $23 million deal earlier this offseason. So since those three are locks to make the squad, they're locks to be the team's probably top three most targeted wide receivers. Let's spend our time looking at the wide receiver position training camp battles for the remainder of the wide receiver room. And let's look at these two guys right here. I'm going to flip the graphic up again. The two guys that I have as projected backups, Erik Ezukanma and Lynn Bowden Jr. So I've got Erik Ezukanma listed as a backup, not necessarily because I think he's next in line behind Hill, Waddle, Wilson, but rather because I am 99.9% certain that this dude is going to make the make the Dolphins team because of the draft capital that was invested in him. I did a complete breakdown on Ezukanma once the Dolphins took him in the draft. Go back and check that out. I'll link to that video in the description as well. But he is making this team, and he's likely going to be competing for snaps for that wide receiver 4 role. But why I put Lynn Bowden Jr. in this category as well. Think back a couple of years. Dolphins didn't draft Lynn Bowden, but they ended up trading a draft pick to the Raiders before he could even play a snap for the Raiders. He ended up not being a fit with the Raiders in what they wanted to do with the offense. They wanted him to produce as a running back, whereas playing wide receiver or even a hybrid running back wide receiver was such a better fit for him. And now look who the Miami Dolphins coach is. You know Mike McDaniel wants to use this guy in some capacity as a chess piece. He's not the outright Deebo Samuel everyone wants to label one guy in this offense, but he's a piece that can be utilized at different positions all over the field. And he's already shown some chemistry with Tua. Remember a couple years back again, when the wide receiver room was completely depleted, Lynn Bowden essentially became Tua's go-to guy for a while there. He flashed, he made some nice plays. Now he's just got to continue to do that in camp. Also, throughout the offseason, all the Tua Tagovailoa workout videos that have been put out on social media by his trainer. Who's the wide receiver that he's working with? It's always Lynn Bowden Jr. So you know that those two are tight. You know they've developed even more chemistry. But let's look at some more of the guys now that are going to be in a battle for making this team's final 53-man roster. First guy on my list was Preston Williams. So Preston had a nice little breakout a few years back as an undrafted free agent before suffering that knee injury on that punt return that I will never forgive that coaching staff for. He was kind of coming into his own. He was flashing. He was like, you know what? The Dolphins got to steal with this undrafted free agent. Oh, let's go ahead and put a 6'4" wide receiver back on punt return. I can't be the only Dolphins fan that was super upset by that call. But hey, here we are. But literally ever since then, when he's been playing, he's been either dealing with drops, dealing with injuries, dealing with straight up separation on his routes, just consistency issues galore. Also, if you think about him in this offense where you want to get the ball to the wide receiver quickly, you want to let him get it in his hands, you want to let him create after the catch, that's not Preston Williams. He's not a great fit. However, we got to keep in mind Devontae Parker is obviously out of the situation, and Preston Williams is kind of like that next guy up in the Dolphins wide receiver room as a big bodied wide receiver. So while he's not a great fit, there's still likely room for that box out jump ball type of wide receiver in like red zone sideline type of work. He was re-signed to this offseason as well to that 1 year deal. So there's not much really to commitment to him in regards to commitment to him. But we know the talent is there if he can just stay healthy and focused. But as of today, I've got him making my 53-man roster. The next two guys I want to talk about, I'm going to clump together because they've got previous history with Mike McDaniel in San Francisco, and that's River Craycraft and Trent Sherfield. Sherfield has the most experience and production between the two, but if either or both of these guys were to make the Dolphins roster, it's got to be more so because of their special teams work. I'd give both a fair shake, potentially landing a roster spot since they've worked with McDaniel. Also, they've worked with Wes Welker, the team's wide receiver coach, as well. Well, like I said, these guys aren't the type of wide receiver that you want taking too many snaps on a weekly basis on the offensive side of the ball. I'm going to flip up that graphic real quick again so you can just kind of see where we are with those battling for a backup role and those battling for a roster spot, because the next guy I want to talk about is Cody Core. So let's say Miami wants to keep a big body wide receiver and Preston Williams just can't seem to shake the injuries, or he can't just perform consistent enough this offseason. Then Cody Core has the door open for him to potentially find his way onto the roster. He's 6'3". He's got 4 years of NFL experience between the Bengals and the Giants, but his upside is definitely capped. He's limited to being more of that possession, big body, box out type of wide receiver. So if I'm making a call on him today, my guess is he doesn't make the final roster, but it's guys like Preston Williams, like Braylon Sanders, these bigger, taller wide receivers that he's likely going to be in these competitions with. Now, the next guy, I want to take a peek at Devontae Dedmon, since he's a guy, it's going to be pretty new to a lot of Dolphins fans. He's 5'10", 200 pounds. He played college football at the small school of William and Mary before most recently playing in the Canadian Football League. And he didn't produce a ton as a pass catcher in the CFL, just 15 receptions in 2 years. But he was the 2021 Special Teams Player of the Year. He had 3 return touchdowns in 2021. So while there's some potential there, the special teams contributions have been proven they are there. Dedmon's facing an uphill battle with the remainder of these kind of fringe wide receivers for one of the team's outright final roster spot. Maybe he latches on as like a practice squad type of guy. And I'm going to finish things up with Braylon Sanders, who was an undrafted free agent this year out of Mississippi, who obviously faces an uphill battle if he wants to make a spot on this team's final roster. He made a little bit of noise earlier this offseason in one of the OTA sessions. If you remember, I believe it was him who caught one of Skylar Thompson's deep ball touchdowns in one of the OTA sessions. But when you simply play the numbers game at this position and you consider how many wide receivers the team can even afford to keep, you realize how many guys Sanders would have to beat out in order to even earn a roster spot. So not only would he have to outperform like these fringe guys, like the Sherfields, the Cores, the Craycrafts, a couple other guys, but there's a chance he'd have to beat out the likes of like Preston Williams or Lynn Bowden as well if the team decides they're not going to keep as many wide receivers. Let's say they keep 6 receivers. You got Hill, you got Waddle, you got Wilson, you got Ezukanma. And if Preston Williams and Lynn Bowden are kind of like the next favorites, that means any of these fringe guys are going to have that level of competition to earn a roster spot. So while the battle at wide receiver it's top heavy with those top guys, with the first 3 guys that I've been mentioning, the battle for the last spots in this position group is going to be an outright dogfight. But that's what I've got for the wide receiver position battle, Dolphins fans. Once again, let's hear which wide receiver you are most looking forward to following along, to paying attention to outside of the Dolphins' top 3 guys. And if you haven't done so yet, make sure you are subscribing. But thanks again for tuning in, Dolphins fans. Until next time, fins up.